Hi everybody, Pen here with Yogacises. I have Perez here today. He's from Puerto Rico. Really excited to connect with him, and thank you for being on with us. He is in the health and wellness field. He teaches yoga. He has meditation certification, and he also incorporates Reiki into his practice as well. So I welcome and thank you again for being on. And I will start this interview with telling everybody how you started this journey and what style of yoga you teach.
Oh, yes. I practice a method that is called it's Samadhi Yoga. It's a methodology that was developed on top of specifically Hatha Yoga. So it's a derivative. I started in yoga, I would say around 2009. I had a divorce, so it was a trial of trying times, I would say. I was drinking a lot at the moment, and I wasn't focusing, I would say. Um, and some of my friends, I used to do a lot of exercise, gym, and other stuff, but I still didn't get that sense of peace. So some friends told me, go to yoga class to see if that works, and it did. I started going down on my drinking. I started reconnecting with what I understood was, kind of my goals, my missions, and it started centering me. A couple of years later, um, I'm doing like gym yoga, which is good, but something was kind of missing still. A couple of years later, I meet with this friend, and she tells me about a meditation kind of certification. So I said it was like an over the weekend thing, and I said, well, man, something that I could do in the weekend and have a certificate. So let's start by there. And I did a Yoga Nidra meditation certification. So I did the basic thing, and immediately I've been giving classes in technology. I'm really from the technology industry. I've been giving classes for many years, so I said, okay, I could teach some meditation and I could start guiding, and I started there. So it got really good. I opened up a small community center here in Puerto Rico and started with that, and it went really well. I started getting people to come to the classes and whatnot, and then what really fueled me was what they started saying that it was doing for them after the classes. So when I started seeing the results, and many beautiful stories within the practices and whatnot, people started sharing or crying and getting those type of reactions. Then I started getting serious into the thing, and I did another certification in advanced yoga nidra. Then I got into hatha yoga. I did my teacher training, and then that started escalating. Right now, journey later, a couple of years later, I am in the YMCA here in Puerto Rico, and we're starting to work on the teacher certification. So I start teaching other trainers, and that's where I'm at right now. At least, that's how I started and where I am.
Thank you for sharing your story. Sorry about the divorce, but I'm glad that yoga and meditation have helped you heal and help others to do the same. So you said about the changes, the experiences after Yoga Nidra for you and your students, how that impacted them and yourself. So can you share some of the specific examples of how they benefit from Yoga Nidra?
Yeah, in my personal respect, I would say bringing clarity every day to my work. I work on a high pace corporate environment, so I work with a lot of people. I manage right now 110 persons here in the company. I work for a technology company, so having that challenge every day, being exposed to to so much pressure because we're always under deadlines and situations happening, I need to be focused and not just be focused, be productive and try to regain, like my energy every day and come in with the best energy, because you have to inspire people to do their work and not just like tell them, so it's different. The other thing that it gives you is a good framework for, um, basically when you are working with people, you have to find good answers and kind, you have to be kind in the way that you project and that you lead, so you can inspire. So many of the yoga stories I can transfer to things that are relatable to them, and many of the values of the Ashtanga, for example, I can transfer on the daily day, to practice them. And through my practice, then I could be a better colleague or a better leader for my people. So that's how it has started working with it. Other things is like letting go, and values of the Ashtanga that have helped me reduce anxiety, because I'm not obsessing about my goals all the time. And there was this beautiful line in one of the books that I read, The Heart of Yoga, which is beautiful, that they express that you cannot control results. You control kind of the quality of your actions. And that in project management is a lot, because when you manage projects and it transfers directly, many of the things that I always ask myself is, how do I take yoga outside the mat and into the workplace? So that lesson right there of the quality of action is very important, because when you manage project every day, everything changes. You do planning, and then next to the moment everything is different. So if you try to tie down what is a chaotic world, what is a chaotic reality, and you just try to say within my mind, I'm going to plan everything and it's going to work. It's not, because you get accidents, people don't go to work, or things happen, they don't deliver on time or whatever, whatever is the problem. So having that conscious, then I don't get exasperated, because I understand reality. It doesn't mean that I don't plan. It just means that I plan understanding that things might change, and it gives me that inner wisdom to say, well, this was planned. There might be a change, so it is accepted, and then we can work with it. That's how it has helped me. Many other ways I could go on half an hour, tell you all the changes that I made in my exercise routine. Personal injuries, I have a neck injury, I have a back injury. I learned to do therapeutic movement with yoga. So I used to drink a bottle a week of pills, for pain medication on my neck, on my back. It's really bad, because I got surfing. I had a big accident in 2001 in California. A guy just dropped down in my head, and my hand went back, and he was standing. It was terrible, and my neck snapped back. So I almost, I almost didn't live to tell the tale. So from that moment on, I've had always terrible neck pain. So by learning yoga, inversions and other exercises, how to strengthen the area, and I paired it with a little bit of strength training. It has helped me to reduce those pains to no pills, and I don't get migraines and stuff that I used to get. And what I've been doing is kind of listening to my body. So when I know when it's really bad, then I do more yoga, and then when it's okay, then I could, relax a little bit. So it has changed my life, changed the way I work with my kids, what I expect to them. My expectations, have been lowered down and more into a guide. It's not expectation, it's more like guiding a process of growth with inspirational questions and maybe not directives, so changing the style a little bit of everything in my life, how I treat my mom, everything. So I could tell you on and on. The beautiful things that I've been receiving from my students. First of all, I've had some students that turn into teachers because I gave them an informal kind of teacher training. I spent 3 months training a group with everything that I learned and a little bit more. So I did exactly what I received in my TT, and I used my materials. I built a deck. It was a PowerPoint, like 90 slides with everything that I understood that was important for yoga. And then I used that to share with them. And they learned from that. And many of them are giving classes now. So one of the questions that I ask them is, how has that helped you? And how has that helped the students that you're working on? Some of the things that I can share is certainly we've got that kind of used on yoga has changed my life. You heard it many times, but specifically, I've had people that basically on the personal level, they were on a downward spiral and it got them out of a funk. People that have started embarked on life goals that they had pending but didn't know how to kind of jumpstart them, and then this really gave them a push to start. People that have made choices on their food and lifestyle very differently, and that they feel that they're in a happy place now because they changed the choices. They care more about themselves, so kind of have them look at them. Then I just had people that just started simply taking care of themselves. Like they just thought, this is something I never take time to take care of myself because I didn't see it as that is important. And now I see that I need to balance my me time between my me time and the time that I give to others, because I always strength that especially for the givers, you gotta stop a little bit and give to yourself, and kind of connect with yourself and love yourself, because with that, then you can give back, you have the energy back to kind of share. So I've on the more deep level, I have a good friend that she used to take 3 pills a day for anxiety, for sleeping, and had problems. Like she got to the point where she had problems speaking. She was in a very bad place. I thought that I was going to lose her because, to be honest, she was going on a downward spiral where sometimes she was talking and I couldn't understand what she was saying. So I told her, move, live with me and quit your job. We're gonna see what we can do. And she did. She moved to my house. She lived far away. And she started working with me, and she started doing yoga. We started doing meditation. So she got to the point where she dropped one of the pills. She was feeling better. Her psychologist told her that she could. Then a month or two passed by, and then she dropped the second pill. She was sleeping already, and she was doing good. She was doing meditation daily and other stuff. And then a year later, it finally got to the point where she quit all the pills, and then she was a heavy smoker, and she's quit smoking, So a year into it, that was great because even though she still has sometimes anxiety and panic attacks, it went down to a point where now it's more of a monthly kind of deal and not daily, like once a month or every 2 months she gets exasperated, because she still have like shocks, aftershocks I call that, on her nervous system, and then she requires a pill, but it's like for that moment. So that what I could say, just speaking on the kind of specific kind of things that have happened. So it got me out of alcoholism. I could tell you I was drinking every day, and there was a party every day, and it was because I was just in a spot where I didn't feel like anything else filled me up, The other thing that I would say is like I've always been involved in causes like in community and etc. And many times you can have the best intentions, but you can say the wrong things. You know, with the best intentions in the world, you can say the wrong things. Yoga gave me a framework of how to speak and how to approach people with those trainings, you know, and it allowed me to grow as a community leader because now I don't say terrible things, even with the good way, you know, and it has allowed the people to connect more with me. And I'm still not perfect. I'm still working on that, kind of picking the right words and images, and and how do I let them do the work needed and step a little bit to the side and just look and all that good stuff. And yeah, um, growing in energy work, I didn't know what chakras were, energy and all that, Reiki. Um, Doing that work, I've seen people recover and be better. I work with some cancer patients that I've been seeing them through after the treatment, spending a couple of months with them, some Reiki, yoga, etc. And I see them walk again, and I see them kind of recuperate. Of course, that has a lot to do with their attitude, and it has a lot to do with their constitution, but it also has a lot to do with a person giving love and time to them, and putting a place with yoga to kind of make them aware that they can self-heal, because I always talk a lot about that. Is yoga, the professor, the trainer is not doing anything. We're just guiding you on your own journey of self-healing. And once they're conscious about that and they're empowered about their own healing process, then that really starts working out, because they see that they come to the mat to work with themselves, just in a group and company, but it's a journey of self-realization, self-healing, and self-empowerment. So that's kind of a summary of everything that has happened around.
Wow, very inspiring. Again, thank you for sharing all this with us. So I know with all the things that you've mentioned, like alcoholism, taking a lot of drugs and trying to get off of them, the side effects and everything, and the pain. So for somebody who's wanting to get started, and what are some of the recommendations that you will give them, and just how, like, what breathing techniques or what specific yoga techniques would you recommend, and also how to just get into the habit of doing it consistently for it to take effect? Because sometimes you try a couple times at the beginning, it's going to take time to feel the difference. Like, some people just, what if they want to give up sooner than they should? What would you suggest?
Okay, in that respect, it's difficult because it depends on when where geographically you start, what schools, what teachers, etc. I guess the first thing that we have to pay attention to is what type of yoga we're doing and why. That's a starting question, and let me respond to that. Because the thing about that is, when you are doing yoga or you're starting, you have to be mindful of your physical condition and your mental condition. Those two things are very important. So if I'm not doing exercises ever, I cannot start in a very physical kind of yoga class. So if I am a person that basically doesn't do exercise, I look for more therapeutical kind of yoga. I look for more basic and calm yoga, because at the beginning my muscles are not used to exercise, so I need to prep them for that, right? On that respect. Then on the other side is, what's happening with my mind? Can I shut it down? I'm very active, I'm always reacting, so kind of meditation practices can seem daunting for people that have never done them. So you might want to start, for example, if you're that type of person, on a yoga nidra, maybe online. There's YouTube, And there are many guided practices that you could put before you go to sleep, like just kind of listen to it and do like a routine before you go to sleep. And that's kind of like a good intro into meditation, because when you sleep, if you're still hearing the tape, um, you can start, the tape will still be working with you, and your subconscious will start just making that muscle memory that it needs to continue on the guided meditation. So when you are awake and then you go to a session of yoga, then at least you know what's going to come and what's the format, and your subconscious is already working with it. So on the contrary, if you're a very physical person, then don't get into that kind of very passive, very therapeutical yoga, because you're going to hate it, because it's very stationary. So I would look for more like a gym yoga and, movement, because that person is more kinetic and needs the challenge, and they understand the world through challenge. So I think picking the right yoga school, depending on what are my expectations to start and the why, I think it's important, because then at least to get me started, because once I get started, then I really understand what it is, and then I could start, well, let me take myself out of the comfort zone, and if I'm very quiet, stable person, then let me be a little bit more kinetic just to learn that, and then come back. And you're always gonna have something that is the type of yoga that you like. But I always tell them, like, when they're taking a step two, that they already are really proficient in what they're doing, well, now go to another instructor, go to another school, learn, and see differences, and then go to another one and keep learning, because at the end of their journeys that you're really going to know what is it that you like and what is it that you need, and when should you change, depending on what you're doing, right? Certifications or anything that you like. So that would be it. I think really preparing yourself for that process and setting yourself up for success, minding your physical condition at the moment, will help you get a better experience out of it. Because it's like going to the gym. When you go to the first week, if you overdo it, it kills your body, you feel bad, and you don't want to come back. But if you do the right amount of exercise, which is a low pace at the beginning, until the muscle builds and everything, then it will be better for you. At least on the physical yoga side. So on the resources, I always recommend good books. Good books could be a good starting book, or short books, because people don't have a lot of attention span to read this stuff. So I always tell them books that are very short at the beginning, and then test them to see if they like to read. And with that, then I start sharing books that are longer and that have deeper meaning, or I see how their interest flourishes, and then I recommend different books depending on what they like. For example, if I see that the person has a keen interest in energy, then I kind of take them into more of okay, let's go and do chakra work, and let's get that going. If I see that the person's more kinetical and likes the physical aspect of yoga, then I'll put it more into like power yoga books and all that good stuff, so they kind of like work on their body. If they're more mental, then I'll recommend like very philosophical books, so they have more of Ashtanga kind of a study, and not Ashtanga the yoga style, but the true Ashtanga philosophy kind of portrayal. So those are kind of the wirings that I would do to support them.
You brought up an important point in terms of depending on the person and how, their body and their mind, and when are they ready to move on from one stage to the other. A great point. So how do you incorporate Reiki into the practice? Is it like a separate class that you do, or do you kind of just tap that into the class as you're teaching yoga?
That's a good question. I understand the Reiki, mana, prana, ki. It's the same thing, right? It's body energy. I've studied martial arts. I've studied different styles of energy manipulation kind of theories. I think that what connects as a general rule from all of them is that the person really is the person that channels its own energy, right? When you have that knowledge, then what I tell my students is you can be at a yoga class where it's like downward dog, upward dog, ta, 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 and that's just a gym class. It's not even yoga, it's just a calisthenic class. The difference between that and true yoga form is that when you're from one posture to another, you're in a process of body energy manipulation. So I start talking to them and integrating that kind of training, which is Reiki, really. But instead of using the pure framework of the symbols and all that good stuff, I take it to a very simple poise where you do self Reiki, right? And the self Reiki, you attend your chakras. Within the yoga class, you can do that consciously and you can teach them how to do it and how to concentrate. So, for example, we have a process like a setup in the class with a structure, right? So I could start, let's say, I focus on specific chakras depending on the class, and I let them know so they kind of learn in that process, right? So if we're gonna work more today with, I always work with Ashna, because the Ashna is understanding of uh, every chakra problem that you have has a Ashna component. If I have a problem with my root of fear, um, I'm not gonna overcome fear just by fixing my feet and kind of grounding, right? You have to work with your mind, whatever created your trauma, and clean it. So the ashna and the root chakra are there, they're intertwined, right? So from there on, anything that happens, if I have a problem with my heart chakra where I don't trust people and it's a trust issue, right, in people, and I don't have that everlasting love for everybody and I don't want them to touch me, then you have to work the ashna, which is therapy and why, and making exercise to let it go, but at the same time, you work that chakra. So into the classes, what I do is I find out, I kind of ask them first, how are they feeling? What are they looking for? And I look for keywords in what they say, right? So when they tell me, then I look to see how we could do a little bit of self Reiki into the class, into that chakra that they need. And then at the same time, I'll incorporate mudras, mantras, and other tools, kind of smells, anything that I could do to kind of pile up that love that that person needs for that energy area and kind of work it. Um, the best one is always a good meditation at the end, because that's the main healing tool that I have for them. Like, no matter what we do with our body, if you just meditate 5 to 10 minutes where you can really relax and connect with yourself and connect with your energy, that's the main Reiki tool that I use, because they meditate and they relax and then they, just take that energy off their body and off into the universe and they welcome healing. So, kind of guiding them, what I do is Yoga Nidra is very similar to Reiki. Now, the difference is that when you do Reiki, you put your hands into the person and you work it, right? Not necessarily touch them, but guide the process, and you're the antenna. What you learn with Yoga Nidra is the same, but you say to everybody how to do the self Reiki process within their mind in a guided meditation. That's the difference. Now, it's interesting how it's the same thing, but it's very different. It's kind of weird. But what you're doing is giving them instructions through a meditation to do a self Reiki. And that's how I incorporate it. So at the end of the class, we do a self Reiki. They're not conscious about it because they're just following a guided meditation, but I use healing kind of guided meditation. And when they're done, my parameter, if that worked or not, is I just ask them how they feel. So I do a how do you feel before your class, and I don't tend to tell them, that I'm going to be working specifically with them. And then I just ask them, how do you feel about that neck? Or do you feel desperate still? Or whatever. I just go back to those keywords and see how they reply, And then I know that the therapy is working as I switch because of the result at the end of the class. Or I'll follow up with them a couple of days later. How did you feel about X or Y? Did you sleep well that day? Because sometimes they tell me I haven't been sleeping well. How did you sleep that night? And then they'll tell me, like, it was great, and that works.
Okay, that brings up a good question that I'm thinking about in terms of when the self Reiki, the yoga Nidra, doing it themselves at home rather than you guiding them in person. What if they say, I'm not getting the same feeling that I'm getting when I'm with you than when I do it myself? What suggestions would you give to for that person to do it on their own at their home and wanting to experience that same feeling?
Of course, there's a little bit, that's a tough question because it has kind of an ego attachment to it, and I'm just gonna share different scenarios. I'm not gonna answer that directly, but I'm gonna give you a couple scenarios. I think when you have a personal practice and you are good at it, and you go to your house and you do your meditation and etc., the constants of it drives results, and also when you start driving your own practice, you start getting those self-realization questions that you don't get when somebody's guiding, because sometimes I need a specific answer and I don't even ask for it. It's just I'm doing my practice and it comes to me because I'm in my own mode, so I kind of explain that to them so they're aware and they don't create an attachment with the instructor. This is not a tool that is made for me to guide them. This is a tool of self-realization that we are just doing together, but eventually the idea is for them to just be on their own and be in their process. This was just, I would say, an encounter, so they kind of like learn it and then they could do it. So all my classes, I'm always focusing on them really learning it. So I stop many times the classes a little bit and give them like little workshops and, how they do it and how they do it on their own, so they can really work with it. Coming back to your answer and being more direct now, without the self-attachment and all that good stuff, what I personally felt is when you are in a class, there's a lot of energy in the room. Certainly the energy of the person that is guiding is important. It's not super important, but it can add to the experience if that person is very well connected with his own energy and knows how to drive. That you will see when you have a yoga instructor that's used to be doing classes in gym. That person doesn't connect with chakras, so he's all physical and it will give you a good sweat and a good stretch and etc. But it will not inspire you. When you won't get to a deeper kind of self-conscious when you're with that person. So if you have that guide, that person that really inspires you and that has a beautiful energy and that adds to your process, then certainly it's not the same, but that's just life. When you get a good tree that has a great fruit, it doesn't give you every time. So when you got it, you gotta pull it, right? So that would be that perspective. So certainly, what I teach to them is that this is self-realization, and it depends on no teacher. And I ask them to actually go to other schools and etc. So they break that attachment with me. For me, it's super important. Because I'm not gonna be alive, forever. So they need to continue their practice no matter who gives it to them. So what I do sometimes, I use other instructors to actually come to my class and then I won't give it. So they are not used to having me all the time. And I break that a little bit also. So I don't know if that answered your question, but I tried.
Yes, it did. Thanks. So in terms of, you mentioned the whole energy thing and working with other people in a group setting, and especially you're doing energy work, and I'm sure you're very intuitive, and you kind of, people, when you're doing this type of things, you might absorb their energy, and so how would you basically, what steps or rituals or whatever you like to call them, to steps to get rid of the energy that you absorb from other people, to get it out of your system?
You will laugh. I take a bath, and it might sound a little bit crazy, but it works. I When I started doing yoga nidra, um, the first days I didn't know, right? So I did these rituals where I had maybe 40, 50 people lying down, and I was giving them healing work, and I took everything, because I asked them, release it, please. And, and then in the process, but I'm there, so I'm absorbing. And then I used to get home and I went to sleep. And then when I woke up midnight, like 2 a.m., I just saw all that energy crazy just going around my room. And I was like, oh my God, this is terrible. Because I could see it, and, moving and everything. It was like, oh my God. So I talked to my guru and I asked him, man, this is terrible. How do I, get so he gave me a bunch of good tips, but one of them is when that happens, he told me so many things. So I'm just going to share a couple of them that really worked for me. First of all, your energy is like impermeable. Basically, it's like your body's to the water, right? And nothing really can harm it or touch it, or it's just in the mind, because we've seen too many horror movies and whatever that this energy interacts and whatnot. The mind is sealed, so really nothing from another person, if you don't give it permission, can do anything to you. So all you do is when you start working with energy work is you don't absorb it. You just for example, you ask that person to heal, so send it to the universe, and you don't have to take anything, because that's not what you do. Is you are channeling a session, you're not absorbing that. It's kind of different, right? The other, and that I learned with Reiki too. In Reiki, you're the antenna, so you kind of grab the energy from the universe, but then when you place it on people, you kind of you're not the person that heals them. Well, the first thing that you learn about Reiki is that it's the universe that itself, doing the work. So you're just in there as an antenna, I would say, but you're not the healer per se. It's the universe, and you have to be respectful of that, because then if the ego comes in and then you say you're the healer, you're stupid, because no, the universe is really giving you the energy. It's, you are part of the universe, and that person heals if he wants. If he opens the quantum doors to the healing process, heal himself. You are just there kind of telling them you can, and I want to help, but you're not the healer. He heals himself. So coming back to that on the energy side, and kind of understanding that your energy is untouchable, and you don't nothing can damage you if you don't give it permission. The other thing that he told me, whenever I had like kind of energetic, I call it like excess garbage that's like lying around you when you finish a yoga class. Like there's this energy that's just kind of wandering around you. It's normal. You take a bath, and he told me that water is healing. Like any, if you go to a river, you go to the ocean. That's why people do that a lot, because it helps you channel off energy. So taking a bath actually is super simple, but it's effective in terms of energy. Taking a bath always after a yoga session or after a Reiki session, and cleaning yourself, it helps you get off that debris. The word that I was wanted to use is energetic debris. So you kind of, every time I give a yoga class, I feel it. Sometimes it's like twitchy, it like itches a little bit. So I just gave a class. It's really weird how I get it, but I know it's energy around me, and it just gives me a little bit of itch. So it happens when people are just letting go a lot of debris. So I sometimes catch a little bit of it. So I'll just go take a bath, and it'll. And after I stop obsessing about others people energy and saying like I am perfect and I can guide this, and just lift up my self-confidence, that type of bad interaction just stopped. The only exception is when I'm working with people that have real big issues, like they're a mountain of like depression or sadness, and when you touch them you can feel it. When it's really really intense, it gives me a little bit more work. So I use kind of sage, and I use other kind of, I did smudging a little bit, and that helps for energy that is just in a room. That could be bad. Like for example, when you get to a room that is always gives you like a bad feeling, when you move into a new space, into a new house, and that kind of energy. I did Feng Shui studies and different kind of other energy work studies. And long story short, a little white candle, smudging with sage, and those two things can be very simple house cleaning tools, especially if you have problems of bad energy just roaming around and could be even abusive, like touch you and do that kind of stuff. Putting a white candle in the room tends to steer that energy away. I think in the subconscious, if the person has psychological side effects from trauma and that kind of stuff, the candle, what it does is to your subconscious is when you're sleeping, it keeps energy coming into the eyes, so you're never pitch black, and that kind of helps you relax. Because when you're going through trauma, which could be interpreted as kind of ghost and stuff that is coming to haunt you, or energy, if the person is going through a rough patch, the person can misinterpret that kind of thing. So psychological, the little candle, you tell them is for protection and all that, but really it has a psychological effect when you're sleeping, because your pupils open up and down, and when you're resting, if it sees light, then it kind of tones down. But if it's pitch black and you're scared, it will trigger you into being nervous, and will not allow you to sleep. So those are little tips that I could share with you that have impact in your energy, and it could be subconscious or direct.
That's interesting with the candles. And now I'm thinking, would it make a difference whether it's natural candle, with fire, or if it's electronic candle or battery operated? Would that make a difference?
I since there's so much we don't know about spirits, really, I wouldn't know. What it says is that the light it disperses them. They like darkness. How true is that or not? I don't know, because the universe is naturally dark. There's the sun is like it's there, but the whole universe is dark, right? So if we really understand energy is everywhere, and I don't think that energy will be repelled by a little bit of light. I think it's more on folk tales that have stayed for a while. Could be true, but I don't think that really bad spirits will be deterred by light. Like if something is really bad, it's not gonna stop because a little light is gonna, do its bad thing. Like having a bad guy with a gun, he's not gonna stop because you show a candle. So I think all of that. I could summarize what my guru said. If you're a driver of a yoga class or a session of meditation, you have to really hone in your own self-confidence that you're going to do it well, and that you're going to be protected, and that you have all that you need for that. And really, 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 that's what all of the things that I mentioned, the one that really helps me is that one. because I work healthy self-confidence, and really has helped me to just overcome that fear.
Interesting. So, now you mentioned Feng Shui a little bit. Actually, I was just thinking about it and you brought it up, so good time. So how do you kind of like set up the yoga your home with based on the Feng Shui, like where to position your yoga mat, for example, and which way you're facing and when you do yoga meditation?
I'm just gonna summarize Feng Shui into anxiety. Okay, so it's crazy, right? What does Feng Shui has to do with anxiety? And this will be it. When you get to a room that is overloaded with stuff, it will give you anxiety, especially if the stuff is just like not very well put together or organized, because it will take you more time to actually look through it, and visually you don't feel that well because it's all unkept, So um, those are little subconscious triggers of anxiety. And just think of your body like a little bucket. So when you come to your house, and let's just say your room, right? And your bed is not facing the door. So what happens is that all the time you have this little subconscious that you say somebody might be coming in the door. When you're anxious, that little somebody might be coming in the door kind of like spikes. So every little thing that you do in your house that contributes to your anxiety, then on a daily basis it just contributes. It adds. Like you have a mess. Uh, you don't like the energy of the painting in your house because it emotes the incorrect energy. Might be too dark, might be too bright. Basically, all that you do by studying feng shui is understanding what triggers anxiety to your personality and how to make it better, so by your personality is more in harmony. So that way you don't pile yourself up anxiety and build it every day, which adds to whatever situation you're having. And then how do you make your home and your areas more accessible to your personality? you know and that's what I learned on that journey, on because it can go, and they'll say about energy and many other stuff, and it is energy because anxiety is energy within you, and that you accumulate that is not good, right? So it makes a lot of sense in what they say, but what I do is I transfer it to modern terms, so people don't listen to me like like a crazy person just talking about it channels like this and like that, and I don't get into that. I say the same thing, and with about the dragons and everything that flows, and how um, basically abundance and how all that good stuff works. Abundance works if you're not anxious, right? Because you can receive, because you're open to. When you're anxious, your chakras doors are closed because you're nervous. So that's how I talk to people, to kind of getting into a lesser kind of metaphorical sense. When I talk to people that have more training and that have the different trainings in the stuff that I'm talking, then I get more technical, and I change the subject of how I translate that, so we could have like a more advanced conversation. But I take it down when I'm talking to students, because it takes like a lot of studies to understand, all the, I would say, the layers of knowledge that you have to understand those concepts.
I like the association. I haven't heard of that one yet. From the books that I've read is about specific things to do. Like, for example, where should the garage be if you have a house, and always a bad luck to have it there versus another place, or where your bed should be facing, or should you have a mirror in your bedroom or not. Like those specific things. I have not really heard about the association with just symptom or anxiety relating to the feng shui thing. That's interesting.
Yep.
All right. I think those are my questions.
Okay, that's really good. If you ever come to Puerto Rico, you know I'm around. I provide services. I've been doing this as community work for many years. I think 3 years, 4 years now that I've been giving yoga classes as community service. Um, it's been great. So I thank you very much for your time and this interest in these conversations because, you know, we learn, we share. And the good thing about somebody like you that's caring to share other people's stories and to learn from them, I think is important and is part of what we need in the yoga community because there's so many voices to be heard that is important that people actually do. So thank you for all that you're doing. That's so interesting.
Oh, thank you. My goal is to just get as many people in this field to be known as possible, and hopefully we'll reach as many people as possible. So like just if listeners or anybody tuning in to watch the YouTube video, how can they reach you? What are do you have website or social media links or anything that I could share with others?
I used to. We have a group in Facebook. It's called Ahora Yoga. So it's like it's just in Spanish, and we did it very purposely because we're giving in Puerto Rico. But it's Ahora Yoga. It's spelled Ahora. So that's Ahora and Yoga. We're in Facebook, and we did is just a group of friends that we provide like community service style yoga, and we go to events or we go, for example, for government. I work with children that are in rehabilitation from drug addiction. I'm with a program here in Puerto Rico in the drug rehab section, and then I have a group of kids that I actually go and see on a weekly basis, and we do yoga, and it's part of their therapy, and that's beautiful. You know, to be able to give back. So that's the type of work we do with Aura Yoga.
Okay, awesome. Well, I'll have that on the link description on the description, and so I'm looking forward to share this with everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Thank you. You too.